It's the Redirect Podcast, search industry research, discussion, and analysis from the Black Truck Media and Marketing Headquarters. And now, redirecting you to the Black Truck team.
Welcome to episode 23 of the Redirect Podcast. It is Thursday, November 9th, 2017. I'm Jason Dodge, founder of Black Truck Media and Marketing. Welcome this week by Ashley, and Patrick is back as well from the Black Truck team. So welcome back, Patrick. Since you missed last week, you get you batter up. So
healthy children for the season.
It's good. It is
so far. I mean, healthy is relative for children this time of year. So I didn't get called out to go pick up the kid from school.
It's cold and flu season.
So yeah, I was out last week. This week I'm jumping into an article kind of near and dear to my heart. Something I've always talked about is image optimization on web pages.
Ooh.
Yeah. Search Engine Watch put out an article a couple days ago. Actually came out today, called Image Optimization 101, How to Rank Higher in Image Search. So it's not just your basic how to get your load times faster, but it's how to rank and search on images. It was kind of interesting how it took two different avenues. It's if you specifically want your image to show up in rank versus just as a byproduct having your images show up in rank or in search. But it went through the basics, some good stuff to go through. It started off with the ever increasing importance of page load time, especially in mobile. A good thing to always keep in mind as a web page builder, or even people who do their own blogging kind of deal, in addition to the main content on their site, is a large image file doesn't really help anyone. I thought that was kind of an interesting
Which
thing.
is something I think that you brought to the table a number of times when we talked about site performance and how it can impact search. You know, it takes into, again, the user-centric side of search, is that if you have an image that is large in file size, not image size, large in file size, that clearly it's going to take a lot longer to load.
Right.
But you're taking it purely from the search angle that Google's going to maybe place some weight on that too.
Yeah, a combination. So if you're on a web page that if the image lies on a web page that takes a long time to load, it's going to lose mojo in search
value,
in a SERP, an image SERP, because if it's a slow load, it's going to get pushed down. Another interesting one that I liked that I think maybe we should practice more often is uploading PNGs over JPEGs or GIFs. A GIF doesn't, or as Ashley likes to call it, a GIF. GIF.
That's your mom's peanut butter.
A GIF doesn't have to be an animated file. You can save it as a static image. A JPEG has better compression rates, but it can have compression loss. A PNG is going to be more apt to have the smaller size during load, and you don't have the compression loss over time. So the suggestion is to use a PNG whenever possible when providing images for your site.
Before you go on, that just made me realize that Canva actually, when you download images from Canva, they are automatically PNGs. So that's a plus.
Yeah.
There must have been some strategy behind that on their part.
Yeah, at least with iPhones, if you do a screenshot, those are PNGs as well.
I think a lot of times too, traditionally a PNG is the big formatting. There has always been the transparent PNG. If you're familiar with the especially the Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator world and stuff. So, did this article give anything? Big things that we see that dominate image search is Pinterest. I mean, Pinterest just kills image search.
Right. It didn't touch on that. I think the reason that Pinterest will is because it carries so much authority.
Yeah. So I think where I'm going with that is think about this: is what if much like, let's not talk about link building, let's talk about doing link strategy. If in our image strategy and our quest to, especially if we have a product that's a very image centric, or it needs to be seen like that's visually appealing.
Right.
would you take into account that maybe you might want to also have some Pinterest boards built out around those images as well, with the notion of like, ideally we want to have the site dominate that, but okay, well, what if you build a Pinterest board based off around those themes and let your Pinterest board dominate?
Right. It could. Yeah, that's a good point. I did have a section on link building per se, on how to utilize your images for link building and creating these engagement ideas, but it didn't say going to third party, because it's a no follow on social accounts, or no follow, so that link juice doesn't travel down the pipeline. They just have to be based on interactions and engagement from that point. Another one that I thought was good was, we all know about alt tags, but there's also, in some instances, you can do an alt tag and then a title tag kind of inside the image. So you have the option to do both. Kind of think about it as a page, like on a standard page, a page title and a page description, or a page title and H1, I should say.
Yeah.
So your H1 is more like your alt tag, and the title tag will be more like your basic page title.
We had a discussion this week with a client about whether or not they wanted to use, it borders along the lines of images. It was more for a video, an SWG file versus like an HTML5 file. And there's pros and cons of both. The SWG file, though, will actually scale and move better for usability depending on the device. So in our case, we actually erred on the side of, well, let's go for usability side, and usability's sake, knowing that maybe this was a feature, like that wasn't the only thing on the page. This was just a feature on the page. So let's make sure that the usability, the human side, is just rock solid in there. They have a really great user experience.
At the end of the day, keep it human. That's going to win out to make a better internet. Is keep it human.
True.
Another, obviously, I'll end with this one, is the use of stock images. There's left and right arguments about if stock images hurt your search results. They directly do not. Using a stock image won't hurt you for rank metrics.
Okay.
However, if you happen to use an image that gets used a lot, you're quote unquote going to be seen through. That the person in the SERP is going to see that this is a common image. I'm not going to click it. This is an everyday average stock image. There's some really lousy stock photography that gets used a lot, and there's some really good.
The
high
interracial
quality
handshake,
or
stock photos,
or the boardroom with the 12, 24-year-olds.
Absolutely,
yes.
Different
ethnicities.
Yep. Headsets. Headsets.
Yep. She works for everyone.
Yes, she does.
So use original content wherever possible. That's always it in the world of content, and it means the same thing in images. So it'd be better off to spend an hour with a nice camera and go try and create your own image. If you can't afford to hire a pro, do your best. If not, try to find that stock image that isn't used a million times, or it really speaks to your audience without being repetitive and cliche.
It's really great points. Good stuff to touch on. Ashley, I'm throwing it to you now.
Okay. All right. So we've talked a lot about the rise of voice search, and especially due to smartphones and home smart devices, and then we've talked about where those results come from that these digital assistants read back to us. I don't know if it's like confirmed as fact that like it's the featured snippet.
Yeah, historically, I think that's a very, very safe. I think that's a very safe thing to say.
I know that we've been saying that, but I just didn't know if that was like.
I think it's constantly
official.
changing, so
right,
perhaps
exactly.
that's what you're going to bring to mind.
Not exactly, but HubSpot just posted an article on whether or not people trust Google's featured snippets. Which I thought it had a very interesting headline, so I clicked on it. The headline was, only 7% of people actually trust Google's featured snippets.
Wow.
I hate surveys or results like that, because that means the 7% of who?
Well, yeah, don't get too analytical and
Right.
say what was the sample size. And,
Yeah, I did not catch...
Statistical, excuse me.
Yeah, I did not catch the, the number of people that they surveyed, but they did survey consumers in Australia, the UK, and the United States. And they found that only 7% of respondents consistently trust the featured snippet results. 21% never trust them, and 36% are neutral about them in the results of this survey, okay? And for those of you listening who might not be familiar, the featured snippet is a summary response to a search query that shows at the top of the search engine results page.
AKA position 0.
Yeah, position 0. We will link to our blog post on that, so you can catch that in our show notes. But so featured snippet content is pulled from some website somewhere online, and that is the source that Google believes is answering the search query best at the time that search is performed. And it's not necessarily the number one ranking page for that search query. So going back to what Jason said, that featured snippet is changing quite frequently. I've seen some graphs shared on social media from some other SEOs of how volatile some featured snippets can be. So that's something that we've talked about, going after as SEOs, getting that featured snippet. But obviously this article, brings that strategy into question a little bit. But the author, explores why it might be that so few people trust the content of the featured snippets. And she gave some great examples of some quote-unquote bad featured snippets that don't actually answer the query or answer it in a misleading way. Like one of them was, she asked, this was a typed query, but, how long does it take to caramelize onions? The featured snippet that came up said 5 minutes. Well, that 5 minutes was actually like part of the whole process or something like that, So it was a bad response because it was just taking this time snippet from the whole piece of content that explained the whole process, didn't give the actual time. So, again, bad featured snippets.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So some instances of that can be more negative than others. Say if someone uses Dr. Google to diagnose a symptom and they get an answer that they think, oh, well, I don't need to go to the doctor. That might be kind of extreme. I don't know how many people actually, have a bad consequence from, Googling and whatever. But, that's an example. So, so she says, the author here says, in other words, there's good reason to take featured snippet results with a grain of salt as a searcher. And then she says, for marketers, it could be worthwhile to optimize for featured snippets. And then she adds ethically, of course, and with accurate, truthful information, which, of course, is the way to do it.
I hope you didn't have to give your information away to get that info from HubSpot.
No, this was open to the public.
You're already on their list anyways.
No.
It's okay.
But anyway, I thought her language was interesting. It could be worthwhile to optimize for featured snippets. I wanted to continue that conversation a little bit and say that as marketers, we should be optimizing for featured snippets. Yes, with the truthful information, because if we can establish more reliable featured snippets, then we'll not only be helping out searchers, but then we'll be helping out our clients as well, because as featured snippets come to be more trusted, because they're actually helping people, they'll be clicked on more, and then our clients, unless they answer that query, on the search engine results page, which of course is Google's goal. But there's also something to be said about, giving a user just enough that they might want to click through to the page as well. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. If the problem is unreliable featured snippets, let's inject a little bit of our honest SEO to make a good name for this area of search. It not only exists to serve up what is believed to be the best, most relevant answer for search queries, but will likely be feeding our voice assistants going forward, and the dependence on that is only growing. So
I think that's really, I think it's interesting the point that HubSpot takes on it, which is very interesting. We already know, I used this stat in a couple slide decks recently, like 18%, maybe 20% of searches result in the user going back and changing their query, right? So because we know the web, in a lot of search results, people are fairly disappointed, right? Like, we know you're more likely to change your search query than go to page 2 or 3. You're going to be like, nope, not getting the answers I want. Boom, I'm going to go back. Obviously, we can poke holes in all kinds of things that they did or didn't do. We didn't do the study, but it's very subjective to say that people don't trust it. It's also subjective to say that, WordStream will tell us that 60% of people are going to click on ads, AdWords ads. What's interesting is that brands, as it relates to featured snippet, there's a very few brands that own the featured snippet. So perhaps if more brands owned the featured snippet to what they were related to or what it was relevant to, perhaps that what would we call it? Consumer trust, would increase over time. And perhaps we start to see that number of people going back and doing different searches decrease.
I'm going to go the other way and say, gotta always think of, as an SEO, I see the featured snippet as beta. We're in a different, I call it Web 3.0 maybe now as we're moving into, and this whole notion of automation is still a learning process. And as a user, I've seen plenty of featured snippets that were less than ideal, maybe not 100% wrong or false or inaccurate. But as SEOs, we got to realize, and as users, we have to realize that there's no formula to get a featured snippet. I don't want to say it's a crapshoot, but it's borderline a crapshoot. There's
theories, right?
There's theories. There's certain thoughts behind how you get it or what you get it in best practices, but there's no hard evidence that says this will work, this will not work. And I've seen featured snippets show up that would fall under the categories of people saying, no, this is not the strategy to get it, and then they've gotten a featured snippet out of it. So there's no manipulating it. Users can't manipulate it. The trust level in there, it's under beta, and search engines that are using this to try to get it accurate, and it's going to be built upon user data. If we're clicking on it or we're not clicking on it, that tells the big G if it's working or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll see a featured snippet that looks to be maybe 70% in my wheelhouse on what I was trying to get the answer for, and I'll still click on it and see if this was the right thing, if I need to see more. But maybe it's me as a smarter searcher based on my years of being an SEO, or just my years of being an internet user.
Yeah.
I think it's going to end up being the user. And actually, you described a lot of things where, well, duh, that's just part of life. You need to use your brain a little bit more when you're doing homework and make sure that if it says the sky is green, then you need to know, okay, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, perhaps there's a tornado coming.
Yeah, true.
It's all really good stuff. Good. All right, my turn. So I think I'm going complete rogue, but it's very timely, right? I mean, I'm going to go with strategies for last-minute holiday shopping campaigns. So there's been a lot of discussion in our office lately about, that we see Christmas being pushed on consumers much earlier, right? Halloween barely gets over. Like they can't even drop candy prices in a store 50%. And here's the damn Christmas trees. Or we have radio stations that are playing holiday music, Christmas music, basically from Halloween on, ad-free.
I took my son to Lowe's last night after work, Lowe's hardware store, and the gigantic inflatable Santas and reindeer were out just next to the door, and my son went bananas. Like, no, we're going in the other direction, son.
Yep. Well, and so I think what's interesting is that not only are we seeing that in the stores, but we don't see that, at least where I've been browsing online, we don't see it pushed as early online.
No.
You really don't see the promotional efforts really start to ramp up until, I would say next week, right? We're a week out from the traditional Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You're going to start to see that really get pushed out there. So for brands of all sizes, most major brands are always, they have their holiday promotions. That's all baked in by, I would say they have that dialed in by July or August, right? I mean, they know, and then they have budgets and tactics and everything else they're going to do. But let's say, for instance, maybe you're a brand that has sat a little idle, or you're a small business that is an e-commerce player or what have you, and you're looking for ways to possibly like supercharge those efforts. Like there's still time to do that, to do it smart. So I just wanted to kind of go over some of that, and this will go into a much longer deep dive blog post that that I've actually been working on. So top points are establishing proper campaign schedules, understanding your seasonal audience, promotional campaigns, so what campaigns, what promos to run by channel, so what outlet do you do, and then are you taking care of your existing customers? So from a scheduling perspective, I think it's silly to, of course you're going to include November, right, and leading up to Christmas, but I would certainly want to run some promotions after the holidays too. I would certainly want to make sure I include January in my promotional efforts too, because what is it? Isn't it the day after Christmas is also like
the second biggest shopping day?
Exactly. So you can't tell me that if people are returning in store, they're also trying to do returns and exchanges online, plus they have gift cards and things of that nature. So you need to be in front of people during those times as well. Or if you're at a holiday gathering and you see something that someone got, it might spark your interest to go and look for it. So why not have total Me Too play, but be prepared for that, right? And have some budget allocated there. So keep that in mind there. So while you might have those big pushes for that Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal, I think Black Friday's kind of run its course by now, since even like Home Depot has their Black Friday link that runs year round. They're totally just playing off of the search traffic there. But so understanding seasonal audience, not all products and services are going to do well during the holidays. So you can't be all things to all people, just like trying to figure out what channel is going to work best for promotions. It's like, look at your historical sales throughout the year. You have access to that. Somebody should. You should be able to say, okay, these types of products peaked during the holiday shopping season, or as we get into colder weather. Maybe you are an apparel manufacturer, that's an obvious choice. Or you happen to be one of the brands that has those hot must-haves of the season. You're either have a product that falls on one of those lists, whether it's toys, electronics, something like that. Obviously, those are ones to go after. So make sure you're putting your efforts behind those, but don't lose track of like what I call ancillary products and services. Those things that are totally the shoppers who bought this also bought that, or you bought this toy, did you forget batteries, right? I mean, that philosophy. Or maybe you have some upsell cross promotion. I think all of us have been in that situation before where you get something, maybe it's as a gift, or you're buying it and you go, man, I didn't think about that other item that could go along with this, right? So don't be so constrained, I think, just to the hot ticket items. Look back over the entire year and see what promotions converted the best, and see if there's ways that you can use those products that maybe they delivered the best profit margin, and you can promote those more. So how can you pepper those in? Promotional campaigns by channel. I think this is a really big one. In the digital marketing space, as whether you're in paid search or paid social, especially, you've probably been promoting products through AdWords, Facebook, Instagram, things like that. But are you promoting, again, all products to all people? And that might not be smart. I would say retool that approach for the holidays. Instagram, I mentioned before, back to Patrick, your point on optimizing for images. If you have a product that is more lifestyle oriented, just comes across better in a visual orientation, run an Instagram only campaign. Try and get in front of those people kind of at the right time. I would totally test it out that way. The other side is, like, the beauty behind Facebook is the targeting and layering that you have there. So go and look at, throughout the year, Facebook Insights and see the type of content and type of posts that your audience is engaged with. And then go and look in your product catalog and see if there are products that fit with that, and use that to promote it to that audience. You have the audience identified, find products that can plug in those holes and run a campaign. Of course, for AdWords, I'm a big fan of ad extensions. Pat, we've talked about those on previous episodes, using site link extensions or even call-outs to say, hey, like, order now, you can get it by December 24th. Try and instill some trust there with your brand. And the same could be said for remarketing too. That's always a great tactic, but don't do it creepy. Like, I think be super helpful with it and instill some trust and remind people like, hey, we have what you want or what you need, and we're gonna be here and we can get it to you by X number of date. Like if you order it by December 18th, it'll be on your door by December 24th, something like that. And then to kind of round that out, don't forget about your existing customers. We always, as marketers, fall into this trap, I feel, and maybe it's that whole funnel thing of how do we fill the funnel with new customers? How do I sell product to new customers? And I think that if you're doing a substantial amount of business during the holidays, you need to ask yourself, okay, well, what's the percentage of those customers that were new to us last year? Did they come back and purchase from us again? Because I think that most people get relaxed throughout the year, and they don't get promotions in front of those people on an ongoing basis, and they could do perhaps a better job of building out some more targeted email lists with specific offers for people who bought particular types of products. Again, promoting those ancillary, add-on, new features, that type of thing. You know, Apple's going to do that with the new iPhone or the new iPad when it comes out. Why can't you do that on a smaller scale with your products too? There should be no reason.
I bought a product for my vehicle online a year ago, and a couple days ago I got a follow-up email from the company saying, hey, it's been a year since you bought this product. How's it going?
Yeah,
how's it working out?
Yeah.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah. What other things have you guys seen that maybe have been good in that around the holidays in general? Are there any campaigns that you can think of in the past couple of years that have really maybe they sparked you to either take action or even just take notice? Or do you think it's just really been done that poorly?
I think it's tough for me to put a green or an accurate thought on that because as marketers, I'm all over the internet. And I get remarketed to like crazy from things all over the place too, not necessarily pertinent to my personal interests, but maybe my clients' interests, and it's difficult to see who's really doing what well because I'm not your average internet user in that regard. I don't know. I think car companies, the big brands, are overly aggressive. And they start doing those deep, snowy, romantic sleigh ride things a little bit too early in the season. You know, I think I saw one before my kids went trick-or-treating the other night, and that was kind of perturbing. I can't say who's doing it right, but other than the retailer I just mentioned, doing it wrong, I think I see it a lot. Yeah.
I will have to take note this year. I don't think I've been paying close enough attention. So.
Yeah. No, and I think as marketers we're kind of tough. We're gonna be pretty like uber critical of it, and like you, Pat, I'll see a lot of things, but at the same time too, I mean, I get ads that are targeted, you know, pretty targeted to me from a car ski perspective or anything like that. So I haven't seen anything that crops up right now that I'm like, ooh, must have. I've seen some Instagram ads lately actually that have gotten really, really better. Not really holiday related necessarily. So I think as we inch closer to, you know, the height of the holiday season, it'll be fun to maybe track and see if there's ones that really stand out and campaigns that stand out to us. So, yeah. Cool. Really good stuff, I think, covering the images as well as do people trust featured snippets, and then what are you doing about promoting your products and services through the holidays. So we'd love your feedback. If you have anything to add, please give us some comments in the show notes. Share, like, follow. Until next time, good luck.
This has been the Redirect Podcast. Check out the show notes at blacktruckmedia.com and add us on iTunes and Stitcher.